how should I introduce him, because he's not a stranger to any of you all. And I think we have heard set introductions at least a zillion times. And so I decided to take on a personal, my personal opinion about this person. So one thing that we don't realize when we join Toastmasters, or when we are a part of Toastmasters, is that Toastmasters is not just an educational platform. It has this is just my belief. Okay, I believe that Toastmasters has the ability to transform your life, and it may be during your, when you are trying to improve your leadership skills, or when you're trying to improve your speaking skills. And I feel I have achieved, or I would say, I've attained that fulfillment while I was trying to become a better speaker. And I think among all the contests that we have, all the categories that we have, humorous or evaluation, TT or international, I personally feel that, international speech, my preparation for the international speech this year was the turning point for me in my life. And it is because most of you all know who my mentor is. And he's the best we have in our club, not just in our club, but in Jubail, maybe probably in Saudi Arabia. And uh, he's someone who gave me a different perspective about international speech. International speech is not just a mere speech. It is not something that you just you by heart it and you just throw it out on the stage. It is something more than that. It's living. Living. I have learned from him how to live a speech. So uh, I'm so sorry, sir. I'm not going to read out all your accolades because I don't think so that's needed. You know, it's it's a known fact to everyone. So I just feel that we all are so blessed to have someone like DTM Peri to conduct a workshop on how to prepare a winning speech. Uh, he being a champion himself in this category, I think it's just the icing on the cake for us. So let's all enjoy that icing, and I hope everyone has a fruitful session. And make, like Dr. George mentioned before, make use of this opportunity, make use of this, maybe 1.5 hours time what we have right now in our hand. And even if you're competing or not competing, doesn't matter. It is just about learning something new, and that is what life is about, right? So without further ado, let me welcome our dearest DTM Peri. The virtual stage is yours, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks for that. Lot of words of praise, President Madam Melba. Okay, while many of those prices have definitely made me happy, I've always feel comfortable staying humble. I think every one of us do feel comfortable staying humble, and don't make me more than that. And I definitely do not think that I am the best in either Jubail or in Saudi. There are very wonderful mentors here. I am one among them, probably, and including my own mentor, Dr. George, who is I'm blessed to be having him as part of the audience members here. Having said that, let me quickly start. Good afternoon to everybody. I'm trying to make an effective use of this virtual platform to connect with you as effectively as I can possibly do that. So therefore, I am trying to stand up and speak to you. Okay? Because in workshop, when I stand up and move, that's when I try to get a little interactive, a little creative. So I've slightly tried to convert my virtual stage today. And once again, good afternoon. Feel at home. Feel at ease. Okay. How is everyone? How is everybody? Just one or two of you can switch on your mic and answer on that.
Good, sir.
Good, sir.
Good, sir. Very good.
Fine. Good, sir.
Great.
This standing presenting virtual workshop is a little bit new to me, so kindly bear with me if I'm looking at different angles. I don't know, there are two, three cameras here. I don't know which one I should look at. I might be looking at the wrong thing. Please, I will stand corrected during the next workshop. Okay, so it's good to make mistakes. We always like to learn from mistakes. So thank you, Madam Melba, once again. But before that, I mean, to a little bit add to why I have been asked to present this workshop. Yes, I do agree. Many of you may be already knowing me pretty well. The same boring face who talks about personal mastery is now going to talk about international workshop today. But let me also try to add some relevance into why I have been asked to present this. Because my mentor is sitting here. I represented Division L and that time it was Division E in 2012 and 2013 as District 79 finalists in international speech category. And after that, and I moved on a different path, and I think many of my mentees, including Madam Melba being the latest one, have surpassed me greatly. You know, they did much better than what I did at the district stage. And probably that is one of the reasons why I am standing in front of you and trying to present something about international speech. But before that is, I want to pause here. But before I go into this, I want to have one disclaimer. Let us because I think I'm seeing 50 plus participants. I think 52 participants here so far. I want to make this workshop. I want to make this, let's say, the sharing of the nuances of international speech preparation and presentation as something for you. Okay, as Madam Melba said, I think some of you may be part of the upcoming contest this year. Some of you may not be, but please try to make it very interactive. We are going to have a long Q&A session at the end, and I want every one of you to have some takeaways. I may be a little fast in some places. Please note down if I am fast, and you can ask, throw them back as questions during the Q&A session. Okay, I want this to be, again, I know I'm repeating this. I want this to be a utility driven. You know, from this workshop should have a very strong utility value. Okay, you need to, at the end of it, you need to have something in you, some techniques, some nuances of presenting the speeches well absorbed within you, so that you can start preparing yourself and also work with your mentors. I think I would be humbled, I would be happy if I can serve those purposes at the end of this workshop. Now, however, what I've done to the way I've structured this workshop into three parts. The first part is going to deal with what international speech is about. What is international speech? And why it is different, or what is so great about it, but how we need to present an international speech. That's number one. First part. Very quickly, I will run through that. Second part, I'm going to be presenting the World Champion 2020 Miss Toastmaster Mike Carr's winning speech video, which we will analyze at the end of the workshop together. And even during the presentation of the workshop, I will be sharing some of those. We will try to relate some of these concepts. Why I have brought in Mike Carr is, even this year, we all know that the Toastmasters contest is going to be a virtual contest. It's going to be online. So I think we need to definitely, he's the first person who has become the world champion in public speaking on virtual stage. So we need to learn certain things out of it. So I'm going to share that. And then quickly some useful steps on how we prepare and present an international speech. Okay, 1, 2, 3. And then you shoot your questions. And please shoot all your questions. I want to, once again, my request to, I know there are a lot of wonderful ladies and gentlemen being here. Do not hesitate. Okay? We are here to help you. It's not just me. Maybe there are other experts sitting here can also help. Okay. So with that, let me just move into the presentation section of this workshop. Can you see my screen? Can you see the slide on your screens?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Now, this is going, as I told you, it's going to be about how to prepare and present an international speech. Now, it is something very specific. International speech is there's a little bit of a gadget problem here as I start. Okay, it's okay. I will use this. Now, please bear with me. I'm not able to move the slides. Let's see what happens. Okay, it's fine. Thank you. Thank you very much. That's my son trying to help me. No, it's always before you get into any specifics, any specific art, or any specific technique. It's always good to start refreshing our basics. So I'm going to ask you a question now. I know that we are challenged on the virtual platform. If one or two of you can answer me this question on what is an international speech? Can you come up with your own definition of what it what does it mean to you? What is an international speech? Why and as this international speech is called as an what is so international about it? I know some of you have been contestants in the recently concluded year. Some of you
where
are champions.
uh,
Please hold.
where the multi means country participant will be there. We can say that speech as a multinational speech.
Can you repeat, Toastmaster Surendra, very quickly?
Yeah, where the means multinational peoples are coming all together on the same platform. We can call them as the international listeners and international speech also,
Part
an
of what
international platform.
Let me just, for the sake of time, part of what you said is fine. We have multinational audience. I mean, that's what you're trying to say. And
Yes.
I just can we get a little deeper? Exactly why is it called as an international speech?
Because it connects with the international audience. If you're not focusing on a particular group, the purpose is to send a message across everyone. It has to touch every single person, whoever is listening.
Wonderful. I think predominantly she's covered everything. Let me just, this is the definition that I've come up with. And, this is not out of textbooks of PMI. It is based on our own experience and exposure of international. Yes, international. And a speech is called as an international speech because it needs to appeal to audience members of different countries, different backgrounds, different ethnicity, different culture. Okay, it needs to appeal to them. It needs to connect to them, and it's also something that they can easily relate with. Okay? And it should leave them with a speech value, okay? A strong speech value which they can take home or that is going to linger in the mind for a long time to come. Okay? You may think that there are a lot of words here, but these words are used with a purpose. Okay, a speech that will appeal to them. It should be something simple that needs to connect. Okay, it should be profound. It should be deep, but it should be simple, and so that they can easily relate to it. For example, if you're going to come, if I'm a petrochemical marketing specialist, if I'm going to come and present a speech about petrochemicals, crudes, derivatives, nobody will listen to me. Nobody will be able to connect. If somebody is going to come and present about Bharatanatyam dance or classical dance in India, how it is done, probably people will not connect very well or something specific. But it needs to be a subject that is easily, it is appealing and easily connectable for all sections of the audience members. Not only that, it should have a strong speech value, a message. What is speech value? A strong message. Okay, that should stay in the audience's mind. And the audience might forget your story. The audience might forget how you started and how you ended. But if the speech value is prepared and delivered strongly, they are going to remember the speech value for a very, very long time. Okay. There are a lot of speeches. I'm not going to ask a question like, for example, our Muhammad Ghatani's speech of power of words. The power of words. More than what he did throughout the speech, people will not forget that the words are power and words have to be used very carefully. That is the speech value. words when they are used carefully, they can change someone's life for the better. When they are not used carefully, when they are used wrongly, they can destroy somebody. Okay, that is a speech value. Okay, every international speech has to have a strong speech value which the audience member has to relate and take from. And it has to be simple. It has to be related. It is something that they need to be able to relate to. And all these things, and the characters, the story, everything needs to become, everything needs to flow nicely, delivered nicely, connected nicely in 400 and, how long is the speech? Yes, anyone, please. I'm going to, I mean, anyone who has an answer, yeah, go ahead.
5 to 7 minutes, with a grace period of 30 seconds.
Seconds. 400?
Sorry, words?
450 seconds, right? That's what you said. I mean, because every second matters in an international speech context. Every second matters, and we need to make use of every one of those seconds and how wonderfully we deliver, how impactfully we deliver the speech, how enjoyably we deliver the speech, how we live the speech, and how colorfully the speech is presented sometimes. Because it is 450 seconds, it's less time as far as the speaker is concerned, but it's a lot of time as far as the audience are concerned. I'm going to talk to you about it a little later. So that is international speech. In international speech, it has to be relatable for everybody. It should be appealing for an international audience member. It has to have a strong speech value, which the audience members should take with it. Okay? That is why it is called international speech. Okay, and public speaking. I mean, public speaking is definitely, especially when it comes to international speech. It is a performance. It is not. That is very, very important. Whoever is going to go and either you might target to cross your club level and go to the area, district level, the division and district, or you want to deliver a good speech. But to deliver an impactful good speech doesn't mean it is just, as Madam Melba said it during the introduction, it's not just memorizing and reciting. You need to bring life into the speech. You need to bring life. You're going to see the world champion speak. And how do you bring life into your speech? The speech has to be a performance. It has to be a performance. It is not about memorizing and reciting. You need to feel your speech as you're speaking. Very, very important. You need to feel strongly, feel for the audience members, make them feel your feeling. Don't start thinking your speech. What is the Raju came and this Ahmed was there, and if you start thinking, you'll lose the audience members. Okay, it happens to us. So it requires a lot of effort, a lot of practice, a lot of mentoring, a lot of coaching. Otherwise, we fail to connect. That's very, very important. Now, I'm going to ask you a question. What, in your opinion, makes a normal speech into a great speech? I'm still learning the gadgets. How do you differentiate a great speech from a normal speech? Someone presents and leaves. Let me try to define this for you. Someone comes and delivers a speech in your club. Some of those not necessarily those winning speeches, even some of those wonderful speeches that are delivered at club, which you always remember. What is the difference? What do you trying to answer?
Maybe the story and the setting.
Story and the setting. There are elements, doctor, definitely. What else? What else can we say? I need some more answers because I want to make sure you're all awake. I know it is.
Good evening, sir. May I?
Yeah, please, ma'am. Please go ahead. Anandi.
Whenever the audience expectation is overcome by our speech will be a great speech, I think so.
The audience. I mean, you. Can you repeat this? Audience expectation. You outperform their expectations. Is this what you're saying?
what they need. When their need is satisfied by our speech, it will be considered as a great speech, sir.
That's also one form. Any more answers? Any more answers? I'm just going
Can
to.
I?
Can I, sir?
Yes, I think there are two canines. Who
Okay.
knows? Yes, yes.
Okay, it's me, Sanhira. It's like if the audience are involved and there is a takeaway. If, for example, the last speech, personal mastery, there was a takeaway, a simple takeaway for each of the women who were present. So I feel that it was a great speech for me when I looked at it.
Thanks. I feel very happy that you talked about personal mastery. But that was a keynote, and I had a lot of time. I had the luxury of time. I was just spending hours, more than an hour or something, and I had slides. Yes, you're coming very close. But this is in the 5 to 7 minutes, the 450 seconds. 450 seconds is including the grace time. 420 seconds is 7 minutes. Within that, how a speaker transforms herself or himself into a great speaker. I think I will not say out of all the elements are very much there. Madam Samrana, you wanted to speak, sir.
Yes, sir. If you are connected with the audience, and if you are able to deliver message to them, so it can be a great, normal speech can be a great speech.
Wonderful. I mean, I think all these elements are there. Dr. George said about a nice storyline and setting. Madam Sunera Sheikh mentioned about takeaways. Madam Samrana is talking about connection. Okay. Look at what I have tried to put together here in what is a great speech. A great speaker or a great speech or a great speech or a great speaker makes you experience her or his experience in the same way that they experienced. That's very, very important. Connecting with the audience members, and make them emote the same way that you did emote when you went through the experience. And if you are able to effectively pass on, make them make them feel the way you felt, with that impact, something affected you. Normally it's about international speech, it's about sharing of an experience. Something happened to you, or something happened to someone in your family, or something happened to someone of your friends, something like this. It's always, it springs around us. But if you can bring that experience, bring life to that experience and present it to the audience members and make them experience your experience, then that speech becomes a great speech. Only thing is, we need to make sure that experience is worthy enough for audience to take it. Make sure it is not a boring experience or a horrible experience. It should be a nice experience, an interesting experience, or a profound experience. Today, we are going to see what Mike Carr, the latest world champion, is going to speak about. Okay? So once again, a great speaker or a great speech makes you understand the experience of the speaker in the same way he or she experienced it. And that is the task. That is the challenge there. And what is the challenge for a speaker? Biggest challenge for a speaker is, anyone can fill in the blank very quickly, just one answer. What is the biggest challenge for a speaker?
Audience involvement.
Amazing. I think you must be a great speaker. I think we have to give I think Madam Sunera is getting ready for the championship. Yes, audience. The audience members are the biggest challenge for the speaker. I mean, audience or human minds are continuously bombarded with thoughts. I even talked about it in personal mastery. And making them disconnect from those thoughts and reconnect with you is a big challenge. For that, you have to make the speech be interesting, colorful. There should be twists. There should be conflicts in your speech, and so that you don't let them go away from you. Okay, it's very important. An average human mind gets bombarded with 2,000 to 3,000 thoughts in 1 hour. Okay, I think, how many people do I have? About 52 audience members on this screen. Probably some of you are completely with me. Probably some of you are not with me. Okay, but as a speaker, the challenge on me is how to keep the maximum number of audience with me for the maximum time until I complete my speech, for which I need to cater to different tastes of the audience members in that one single speech. I'm not definitely going to have 100% coverage. Not just me, I think even one of the greatest speakers of the world are not going to have 100% coverage. But the aim is to have as much coverage as you possibly can, for which your speech should have those nice parts, which we will talk about after we watch the World Champion speech. For that, your speech should have those attractive moments. For that, your speech should have those learn-worthy moments. For that, your speech has to have its own twists and turns and conflicts. For that, your speech should have speech value. Otherwise, audience members are going to be lost. Okay? So the biggest challenge is to retain the audience members. Now, 450 seconds is probably little time from a speaker's perspective, but 450 seconds is a long time as far as the audience speaker's perspective to keep them hooked on, especially today with all the gadgets on their hands to keep their attention. The next point, because the points of disconnect, audience members will go into their own world and keep them attracted to you and keeping them hooked on to what you're going to say continuously, consistently, interestingly, impactfully is so important. And that's why it takes so much of effort, so much of practice, so much of feedback from mentors and coaches to make our speech meaningfully connecting with audience members. Now, I'm going to, and again, once again, make the audience members, what I told about the speaker, as a speaker, you should feel the speech, not think the speech. Same holds good for the audience member. As a speaker, you need to make the audience members feel your speech, not think your speech. But if you're going to come up with a lot of technical details in your speech, supposing somebody wants to talk about deep sea diving, snorkeling, going there, looking at the pearls, looking at the fishes, different types of biological names of the fishes, and the details, the audience are going to be lost. They should enjoy it like a movie, a nice movie. Only then you will have them with you. And it's not an easy job. It's the way how you look at the audience members, the way you smile at those audience members. Sometimes you need to cover the audience members with the different parts of the auditorium or the virtual screens. Only then they are going to be with you. And also make them feel. That's very important. And one quick tip I'm going to share with you. The audience, as an audience member, if you're listening to a speech, an international speech, at the end of the speech, you need to you need to find meaningful answers for these three questions as an audience member. What are they? What, how, and why? These are the three parts. Now, let me tell you what are these. What? I mean, as a speaker, you need to select what you want to talk about. Okay, what will make sense to these audience members? I'm presenting an international speech in District 79 in Dubai. Let's say I will start with Dubai. I'm presenting an international speech in Dubai, and probably I can bring in some characters or some happenings, some events with the Dubai audience is familiar with. Let's say I'm going to connect with the audience members in India. We're also forming, today I think we have audience members from India, 14 or 15 of them. If you're going to talk about something about the industrial city happenings here, it may not connect with them. But it will connect very strongly with you. But I need a balance of, I need to know my audience mix. So what I select to talk about matters a lot. So it's better to keep it generic appealing to audience members. And the second part is how I speak, what I speak. How the speaker spoke, what she or he spoke. Connection is a life feeling. Okay, that's part. And finally, the why part. Think of when you're developing your speech, think that you are an audience member and try to fill in the answers for this what, how, and why. I talked to you about what, I talked to you about how, the why part now. DTM Peri came and delivered a wonderful speech, lively speech. He was doing so many things. He kept it humorous. It was connecting, and he talked about so many wonderful things. But why did he come and speak? Was there a good takeaway? Was there a good speech value that I could take home? If I don't find an answer for that, again, my international speech is not going to be finding a place in judges' bracket. The speech value. The speech value has to be strong. So, help find answers for what, how, and why. If this is not clear to you, we can discuss during Q&A, okay? The next. Yes, sir. What differentiates a great speech from the rest? Of course, and I'm just having a simple picture here. Okay. We all know this wonderful gentleman, Mr. Charlie Chaplin, a genius. I mean, he came and he presented whatever he had to present to the movie industry of the world with a difference. You should, I mean, try to make your speech very different from a normal speech, from a cliched speech. I mean, we all get inspired and influenced by many great speeches, but we need to, every one of us is precious and we have our own stories, our own experiences. Bring out those experiences and make it different from the rest of them. And make it interesting. Make it very, very interesting so that it will stay in the audience mind for a long time. It's very important. Now, I shared this in some of the workshop last year. And I don't mind sharing this again because my mentor is sitting here, Dr. George. In 2012, when I went to the district finals, 79. It was a very fiercely contested conference. I was very close. Of course, I was not the winner. My speech was about a janitor cleaning the restrooms and their life, their life where nothing is clear for them. The forward path is not clear for them. Even in spite of the fact that they are instruments of humble service, of course they came into that journey because of they didn't do something in the past, but they deserve a lot of humanity, good life, good respect, which most often they don't get. So I wanted to talk about the janitor, but I cannot take all the audience members through the nuances of the restroom. So I wanted to make it a little different. So I brought the audience members inside a colorful Dubai mall. I started explaining the environment and what's happening, little lively moments, humorous moments. And then finally, somewhere in the beginning of the story, I introduced the janitor. I think it connected with many people. So, but people always remember that. People, when they meet me, they talk about Dubai mall. So it should linger strongly in the audience's mind. And you need to design a speech for that. Now, the next one. Again, your speech involves, it's not just a 5 to 7 minute speech. It involves drafting, redrafting, reworking, getting the feedback from your mentors. Your speech might appeal to you, whether it is appealing to others, starting with the initial presentations at home, at the home audience, then your mentor, then feedback, correct? I'm sure many of you who went through different stages of international speeches know that you need to keep on correcting your draft. Okay? I think Madam Melba's case last year, we must have corrected a draft at least 100 times or more. A lot of practices. Only then it's going to connect. Okay? Now, 2020. Before I move into this, are there any quick questions here before we go into Q&A? Because this is the next section. Any quick questions so far from what we covered? I can take one or two if you can unmute yourself.
Can I have one question, DTM Peri?
Yes, go, sir. Please go ahead. Always.
And one of the valid points that you shared with the audience members was making the audience members feel and not think is one of the challenges. And when for example, if a speaker, an international speaker, chooses to speak on a subject that is designed to make the audience think, for example, especially a subject, a speech that is meant for informing the audience, don't you think that here the audience members are required to think rather than feel?
Good question. What I exactly meant by this, make the feeling part of the audience members more dominant than the thinking part. Definitely, the speech has to make sense. That's when there has to be a logic, there has to be credibility, there has to be the audience members should feel convinced that the speaker is not talking something for the sake of talking. But we need to touch the emotional side of the audience members more than the analytical side of the audience members. Because all we have is 450 seconds. If I'm going to bring in a profound, life subject where the audience members have to think, be convinced, no, that's not going to connect. Touch the emotional side of the audience members effectively and rightly during most part of your speech. That will be little analytical part. Only then your speech is going to connect. That's what I meant.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Okay. I guess there are no. We will for this. We will revisit every question towards the end. Now going into 2021 speech contest season and the stages, it's again going to be a virtual platform. Toastmasters International has announced. Okay, so this is again going to be a little challenging. As the SATAC chairman of District 79 2021, I have already received that messages and we are already looking at dates and we are going to shortly announce. By next week, we are going to receive the dates for District 79 SATAC. But it will be a virtual conference and contest. So we need to learn how we master this virtual public speaking skill in a contest format. It's not new. I mean, already last year it was done, and Madam Melba went all the way to district. How to do it more effectively, more impactfully, and that's why this competition here. I think let's look at it from that context. And the best example that we can probably learn from is the current 2020 World Champion of Public Speaking, Toastmaster Mike Carr. And I mean, he did a wonderful job. I don't know if any one of you already watched his speech. I think many of you must have watched. Have you watched his speech, the winning speech?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
If not, don't worry. We are going to watch that speech here. We'll spend the next 7 minutes watching his speech. And then I'm going to go into the concepts of international speech. I'm going to request the Zoom master to play on the speech. Please listen very carefully, please.
Mike Carr, the librarian, and Mrs. Montgomery. The librarian and Mrs. Montgomery, Mike Carr.
I was spellbound as I watched the sheriff who had just been shot slide back, open that heavy metal door, stagger forward a couple of steps, look deep into the camera and say, I before E, except after C. Contest chair, fellow Toastmasters, I was in the 6th grade in Mrs. Montgomery's class watching an educational video where a sheriff was teaching us about writing while a bad guy named Bad English was shooting at him. It was on a film projector because we were technology challenged in my school. And as I watched that film, all of a sudden something started looking strange. The film slowed down, and when it picked back up, it made a sound like and it looked like it was blinking. Then the sheriff was talking to us from the side of the screen. The blinking started again with a loud noise. Ooh, everything went blank. I ran to the front and I turned off the projector. I opened it up. Something smelled like it was burning. Mrs. Montgomery, I said, can I try to fix this? After school, she said. An hour after the final bell rang, I had disassembled the entire projector all over the floor. I was beginning to put it back together when the librarian came strolling through. What are you doing? She almost screamed at me. Who told you you could do this? I did, said Mrs. Montgomery. The librarian, though, zeroed in on me. This is school property, and it better work when you get it all back together again. If it doesn't work, your parents are going to have to pay for that. Now, my parents did not have a lot of money. If I went home and told them they had to replace a projector at school, I would have been better off in the hands of that bad guy, Bad English. And so, with focused energy, I started putting the projector back together. After 2 hours, it was whole. And Mrs. Montgomery said, let's try it. I reached up and I flipped the on switch. And there, out in front of us, projected onto the screen in all of its glory, was nothing. Nothing. The projector was dead. Mrs. Montgomery put her arm around me and she said, it's okay that you took the risk to try to fix it. The victory is not in the result. The victory is in the try. But I still had to tell my parents. When I got home, I snuck in and I thought, if I just hide in my closet, they'll forget I exist. But then I heard from the kitchen, Mike, come in. I walked in and I said, Mom and Dad, there's something I have to tell you. I love you. And I am scared of sheriffs. I don't know. I ran to my room. I choked. I couldn't think of anything to say. I thought I'll tell them tomorrow. I crawled on my bed and I looked up at the ceiling and I thought, how do I get to Norway? Now, I know there are people from Norway in the audience. And can I just tell you, I don't know why Norway was my only safe haven on this planet at that point. Maybe I thought that Norway had made a deal with the UN, that they would not let crazy librarians come into their country. But at that night, I drifted off to a very restless sleep, dreaming of swimming to Norway. I was awakened with a jolt when my alarm went off the next morning. As I got ready for the day, I was sick to my stomach. When I got to school, I knew my time was up. I slunk to the library to find Mrs. Landon sitting there reading her newspaper. She was drinking out of this coffee mug. That's concerning. I approached her and I told her the final fate of her projector. She slowly started looking up at me. Her lips started curling. Then she leaned forward and said, fine. What just happened? I'm still alive. I could not believe it. My failure had not killed me. And yours will not kill you. What was it that Mrs. Montgomery said? The victory is not in the result. The victory is in the try. Ever since then, I have walked through life with a little librarian Landon sitting on this shoulder and a Mrs. Montgomery sitting on this shoulder. When I tried and gave my very first speech, which was a train wreck, Mrs. Landon told me, you should never try that again. But Mrs. Montgomery reminded me that the failure had taught me lessons that could be a springboard to future success. And she was right. But her words ring even more true for you. And let me tell you why I know this. For years, Toastmasters has been the place where leaders are made. You are here in some way to increase your leadership skill. And this world desperately needs leaders who will create fertile soil for innovation to grow. Toastmasters is a great example. When COVID hit this year, they could have said, no, we're just going to cancel the contest. We'll cancel the convention and we'll pick it up again next year. But instead, they decided to try something new, this virtual experience. And yes, there have been glitches, but that's what innovation is like. Glitches happen. And the lessons that they have learned take us miles beyond those organizations that just canceled. If you want to lead people to fix persistent problems, someday, somewhere, somebody is going to have to try something new. And you as the leader have the opportunity to encourage that effort that might fail, for a chance to find the future. The victory is in the try. Be a Montgomery leader. Encourage risk. Try new things. The victory is not in the result, my friends. The victory is in the try. Contest chair.
World champion 2021. Mike Carr, I think. No wonder he was chosen as the champion. Do you agree with me? Amazing speech, amazing speech. And what was the speech theme? I think we are going to get into the analysis of this speech a little later after we discuss some course concepts, the speech concepts. But let's quickly summarize. What was the speech theme? I'm not sure if all the audio and video transmission was perfect. For the benefit, I think he came up with a speech theme which said that the victory is not in the result. Victory comes from the try, your effort, your try. And then he brought his own personal story, his personal experience very nicely, very beautifully, very impactfully, very convincingly connected with the audience members. And then he brought out a lot of general speech value out of it. He even connected Toastmasters. He talked about how Toastmasters leadership handled the COVID situation and still went on. He talks about glitches, so many things, wonderfully delivered. Okay? But here again, we are going to come back to this. Let's remember the speech, the way he was connecting, the minutest of the expressions he had mastered in delivering the speech. One of the best world champion speeches I have personally. I'm a crazy fan of. I have nothing else probably to do, but I watch a lot of world champion speeches. But he's one of the best, and that coming from a virtual stage. I mean, if you really go into the first place and second place winners difference. Now it's very close. Here I think he's really done a great job. We'll talk about it later. Let's continue with the course concepts. Are you able to see the screen? I think. Okay. I think I need to touch it also. Okay, now it should. Now I'm going to share with you some useful tools, okay, that can be made use to develop a great speech. This is a general guideline. I'm not going to talk about in introduction, body, conclusion aspects, which are all discussed at the club level. For the benefit of some of the new Toastmasters, your international speech, when you design, you need to have an introduction, which needs to be attention grabbing. It can do something to grab the attention of the audience members immediately within the first 10 seconds or 15 seconds. That is typically about 5%. The body of the speech is typically about 80% or 85%, and the rest is the conclusion. And conclusion needs to be very effective. I'm not going to go into those details, but I'm going to talk about from a high level. Now, I'm assuming you're all speakers practicing speeches in your club, and how to make your speech, IS, international speech, effective in this year's contest, or as you prepare for your speech. And keep progressing that to a higher level, from club to area to division to district, and probably to the World Championship. Now, I want to analyze the speech. Okay, any speech can be, I want to use, any one of us, we can analyze a speech using this tool. I call it as a 3 C's tool, which I have talked many times to many of the Toastmasters here, but I would like to refresh your memories for this. The 3 C's. Any speech can be divided or analyzed in terms of 3 C component. The first C is content, the content of the speech. We will look at it, we will quickly go and understand what it really means. The context of the speech, where the speech happens, and the connection, but how well the audience and the speaker connects with the audience. What are the connection techniques the speaker does make use of in connecting with the audience members? Okay. And we will understand this and go back and talk about Mike Carr's speech and why he became world champion, in my humble opinion, and probably in your opinion as well. The first one, content. What is content? Content is the storyline of your speech. Okay. Let me quickly use another. Always, it's good to use an example. And okay, let me complete this. The storyline, the central message, the speech craft, and all the characters that do come into a speech. The storyline of Mike Carr's speech was his own school experience, the experience that he had in school. And the anxieties he had, the fear of failure, and somebody was warning him, was making him more anxious as a character, and some other character was supporting him. Asking, it's okay to fail. It's okay to, you are always, I mean, that was the character who was Mrs. Montgomery, who said, victory is in the trial, not in the result. So all these things, and the way he had written, and wonderfully his crafted speech. Why I'm calling it wonderfully crafted speech? The words are not so many, but the words are very powerfully written there, very meaningfully, very sharply, so that the audience members always stay connected to the central theme of the speech, and he's also making the audience member feel the central theme. The content is about, once again, storyline, central message, speech craft, and the main characters. What is context? Context is the setting, the environment, where the speech takes place, where the story happens. In the places, little bit about the characters also and the behaviors, how it happens. Okay. Mainly the setting part, and this is needed to make this content travel easily to the audience members. And the final C is the connection, and the connection is fairly straightforward. How you do it, your speech delivery, the pace, the pause, the body language, voice modulations, expressions, those little facial expressions, various techniques that you use. Here, in this particular speech, for the first time, a world champion is coming and making use of the camera. He's getting very close. He's even using his hands like this, and very effectively. He didn't make it look irrelevant or for the sake of using it. This is all connection. He made use of the virtual platform so effectively to magnify the impact of the audio, of his speech on the audience members. Very nicely done. And the stage that he had constructed. We will talk about it. But I want, this is, so content, context, and connection. These are the 3 important components of analysis component of any speech. You can do it on any speech. Even Madam Melba's last year's speech, the homemaker speech. You can do it. And you have to nicely design the content, context, and connection, and you need to balance them very nicely. It's so very important, because sometimes the content may be prepared and written with the help of your mentor. Dr. George can come and give you a wonderful speech. He's a very good writer. But the speaker has to carry the weight. The speaker has to go and deliver. And for which the speaker he or she has to feel convinced and carry the speech, not memorize and recite the speech. He has to feel the speech. So you have to balance all the 3. The content should be rich, the context should be interesting for the audience member, and connection should be strong so that audience members are always with you. Okay? This is another important element. I call it as a well tucked up speech. Like the way you tuck up your beddings. It needs to be very nicely tucked, so that it goes and launches like a laser beam in the audience's mind. the sketch, the design. What is IBC? Introduction, body, and conclusion. Three components of your speech. This is mainly the content part. Keep the content very simple. Okay, so that you can get 450 seconds. It cannot be a speech design. The content design cannot be very complicated. It has to be very easy. It has to be very relatable. If you go back to the definition of international speech that we discussed, it needs to make sense. It needs to appeal. It has to be relatable. It has to be felt more than thought about more. Okay? So keep it simple. Keep it interesting. Don't keep it boring. Okay, I'm going to come back. Keep it very different. We talked about keeping it different. And keep the audience members feeling and thinking with ease. Don't stress them. Sometimes I see some speakers bringing content that is very close to their heart, and they take this audience inside their native villages. They go and meet one uncle, and uncle's uncle, aunt. Then this aunt is talking to this brother, brother is talking to sister. The audience members will get confused. It is very important to keep it light, keep it simple. Look at my car. I mean, his speech had very few characters. Predominantly the three characters, he, Miss Montgomery, and Miss Langdon. The positive and the negative characters. That's it. The others comes a little bit. His parents even are not coming and speaking. What we're trying to, look at the speaker and think, what's he trying to say? What's he saying? Even in this particular speech, there was an intelligent humor that my car deployed in the beginning about the sheriff, the character in the movie. It says, I before E, except after C. That involves a little bit of thinking. Dr. George can quickly connect. Some other audience members probably not. But at the world champion stage, some of the people are expected to be reasonably good with English grammar and the knowledge of English, so they can connect. But that was a little bit of a risk he took, but he connected. But don't. So keep the audience members feel as if they're watching a movie, not Christopher Nolan movie. Keep it a very simple movie, where you have to think hard. I hope you understand what I'm saying. Keep them feeling happy and emote rightly with you. If audience members have to emote rightly with you, the speaker has to emote. The speaker has to bring out the right emotion. When the speaker is going to talk about something sad, he has to be on the low pitch and look sad. He cannot be on a high pitch and talk about something sad. That's very important. And because in this particular, why I'm saying this, the content should be not something very close to your heart. It can be close to your heart, but it needs to be interesting for the audience members. You need to make sure. Okay. Sometimes speakers make a mistake. That is a content bias. I want to call it content bias. They choose a content, choose a theme, or choose a story because it's very close to them and something very special to them. But you need to choose something general yet profound, but it will appeal to all the audience members. Sometimes, or speakers, I'll give you an example. Sometimes speakers, she or he, will come and present the bondage between, the chemistry between her or him and his mother. And they talk, my mother is so unique. We are so close. We are like I am everything for her. And okay, it's fine. But every mother loves her child. It is not something very special. So you need to come up with something different and don't overstress on it. These are common mistakes we make. Okay, we should not think that what appeals to us based on our own experience will always appeal to audience members. You need to take mentors' feedback on this. Because we are going to have different kinds of listeners among the audience members, and I have classified them in 4 categories. Predominantly, this is again using the tips from World Champion of Public Speaking, Mark Brown. We will have empathetic listeners. There are different kinds of listeners in the audience mix. Even if we are 50 odd people here, all of us may not like the same thing. We have different likes and tastes. The first kind is empathetic listeners. These are the listeners who are lucky to have in the audience members. These listeners want you to become successful as a speaker. They love you so much. They have so much empathy for you. Okay, and their heart is with you because they probably feel that going up on the stage and speaking is something amazing for anyone to do, and they are with you. But the problem is they are empathetic with every one of the speakers. Okay, so they will not have completely empathetic audience members, which we will not have. I call them the moms, okay, who always want you to succeed. The next one is appreciative listeners. I call them the daughters. Why am I calling them the daughters? Their objective, these kind of listeners, their objective is to come and sit in the audience and look for some entertainment value in your speech, some interesting value in your speech. And if you're entertaining, if your speech is entertaining, interesting, with the right twists, conflicts in your speech, they will listen to you. Otherwise, you see the symbol I have, the remote control, they will switch off the channel. They will go into those thoughts. So you have to keep it interesting for them. You will also have, not them, you also have comprehensive listeners. They are your last minute examination friends. When you're going into your exam halls, there you have some friends, or you will be one of them asking, do you know the answer for this? Do you know what it means? I mean, they are always coming there to come and check what is there. Let's say DTM Mustafa is delivering. What is Mustafa going to speak today? Or what is Madam Hamdia is going to speak? What is that I can? Is there something that I can take from her speech? They're always coming with a comprehensive takeaway intention. So you have to feed them, like Mike Carr does. And finally, the most dangerous kind. Judges are mostly here. The evaluative listeners. They are trying to check for everything. Okay, does it resemble something else? Is it the original one? Or he or she is taking it based on some inspiration, some influence somewhere, or is the speaker just making it up? Is that credibility? So you will have different mix of audience members, and you need to you need to keep them while designing your speech. That's very, very important. It's all the content design. Make your content. It's preparing a speech, writing a speech does not happen in 1 or 2 days. Sometimes the speeches that go up to district level and past district level, even district finance level, takes months. You come up with the draft part, you correct, rewrite, align it with your mentors. That's important. That's why I'm putting a lot of stress on this. The next one, the key elements of your, I'm just clicking all these bullets here, but I'm going to just quickly talk to you about the story here. In a content design, you need to have all these elements, of course, introduction, body, and conclusion. And in your story, in your speech, there has to be those nice, magical moments. At least 2 to 3 magical moments, which the audience members are always going to remember whenever they have to think about your speech. That is going to keep them glued onto your speech. Now, were there any magical moments in Mike Carr's speech? Anyone? What were the magical moments in Mike Carr's speech? Any one of you who has not interacted so far? I'm checking on you.
Well, when the teacher said, "It's okay," and his reaction to that.
That was during the twist, the final twist.
Yeah.
That is one of the magical moments, definitely. Any more magical moment? Anybody else? In the speech, if you really listen to the speech.
When he realized that he didn't got killed because of this failure, I believe that was a magical moment.
Sorry, madam, can you repeat this? I cannot.
I said when he realized that he didn't got killed because of that failure, at that moment maybe it was a magical moment for him.
Yes, I mean, I think Dr. George was talking about his meeting with Miss, what's her name? Miss London, and you're talking about Montgomery, where she says it's okay to make a mistake when she puts her hand on his shoulders. Victory isn't. I think that's also a magical moment. I think even in the beginning, there were some magical moments. Anyone, even in the not even in the message part. Even in the beginning, there were magical moments, which we will not forget.
When librarian is saying that if you didn't fix it, then you have to pay for the payment, means pay for this cost.
Yeah, that is the librarian. That is a scary moment. That's a scary moment. But did you? Yes.
DTM
Yeah, go ahead.
the failure of the projector, where how he projected it with the different angles, that shattering of those things.
And did you, if I don't know how many of you in the audience members do remember or old enough to know that we had those projector-based films those days. I'm quite old enough to have. I think some of us might remember the way he slowed down when the projector slowed down. I mean, what creativity, what connection, and then he again it came fast, and then he came and closed it. I think everyone will remember that. Yes, these are. I think, in my opinion, there were 3, 4, 5 magical moments.
The other one with the cup, there was a dragon, and the the fire was coming out. He could relate it so well, like that connectivity. It was amazing, actually.
That was an analogy to Miss Linden's character. Okay, what is she's going to follow him like a dragon? That was a magical. And what happens at his home? He goes. He tries to talk to his parents, and I love you. I mean, these beautiful things. He was really scared, and he's bringing out with all those expressions, very lively descriptions, vivid imagery, fantastic deployment of vivid imagery. So I think coming back to what we have to do, whatever speech that we have, we need to have those few magical moments, which should connect strongly with the audience members. Our entire speech will be very close to our heart because it is our speech, but it needs to get into the hearts of the audience members, for which you need to have magical moments. And the impact scene, the vital, is so very vital. We already talked about the impact scene. When he goes back to the librarian, and the librarian says, after showing that fearful expression, she says, "It's okay." That's an impact scene. It's okay. And then the nice teacher comes and carries on with him. It's okay to fail. These are impact scenes. Your speech should have those impact scenes. You only have 450 seconds. But to have those impact scenes, you need to have a conflict scene before. If you do the conflict and excite the audience members and create the right emotions and bring the impact scene message, the message goes in very strongly. If you're not going to give the right build-up with the magical moments, give the right build-up with the conflicts, which Mike Carr was trying to do while he did not sleep that night. I mean, he did not sleep peacefully. When he woke up in the morning, he had an uneasy feeling in his stomach. I think we feel when we are anxious. He was bringing all those conflict scenes and then brought the impacts. That is very important. Again, it's all now going back to making the audience members feel your speech, not think your speech. That's very important. I think you may be able to understand that. A very effective conclusion, as his conclusion was very nice. It's very important. We will talk about it towards the end. And no information overload. Sometimes we try to, ideally speaking, I want all the Toastmasters to please note it down. Some of you are already aware. Try to keep the length or the wording, total word count of your speech around 700, 725, not more than that. So that you need to give the right pauses and right pace for the audience to easily relate, connect, and feel with you. If you're going to rush your speech, if you're going to speak fast, because that is your style, you will disconnect with the audience members. Because again, 450 seconds. You have to tell everything that you have to tell. You have to demonstrate everything. You have to place every character where you have to place those characters. That's very, very important. Okay? And energy levels. Your energy levels all along the speech should vary. This is very important. Dr. George might remember this. In 2012, when I lost in the district, one of the world champion of public speaking, I was sitting in the lounge. I don't know if you remember Dr. George. Morgan MacArthur, came up to us and he spoke to me and spoke to you, Shasman. He said, Peri, your speech was very nice. But if I have to give you a recommendation, your energy level in your speech was somewhere here. All through the speech, I was running like this, 450 seconds. I was keeping the audience members between probably here to here. But you need to let the audience member relax, slow down, have to have different energy levels. That's important. This is all techniques, which Mike Carr used in his speech. I think he was varying the energy levels and kept it interesting for the audience members. I know I'm going to go through a lot of details, but I want it to be useful for you when you're preparing this speech. The next one. So that's all with content. Now I'm talking about context. Context is a setting. Okay, I have used this example in so many places. I want to use this again. It's not only what we take in as a content that is important. How we feel while taking in that content is very important. In Mike Carr's speech, the context, where it takes place, is the school context. School, library, his home, school, and everything that is happening is very much and very easily relatable to what happens in a school with a student like him. So the context, he kept it very nice, very simple, very believable, very convincing. I say it's like a flavor of a coffee. Many of us who like to drink coffee cannot drink a coffee if there is no flavor of that coffee. So the setting is so very important. Bring in a nice setting so that your content gets easily transported. And there are many ways for designing your context, depending on your strength and depending on the storyline. It could be make it appropriate to the speech. We can discuss about this during Q&A if you're not clear. It can be colorful, it can be grand, or it can be simple. But keep it interesting. Keeping it interesting is very, very important. And I will skip this. And if you have to use props, you can use props. What are the props? Some of the speakers bring a chair or a table or a little flower or a hat or something on the stage to communicate your message in a more pronounced fashion. But don't try to bring a prop on the stage if there is no relevance. I personally don't prefer bringing prop on the stage because I think it takes away the attention from my speech. But if you're comfortable handling a prop on the stage, bring it so that your speech connects more effectively. Very important aspect is now the connection part. How your connection is the communication medium that takes your content to the audience members. It is the most challenging part, obviously, a huge differentiator, and how we see it. I remember my question, what, how, and why. How we say it matters, and how we say it differentiates, and make them feel your speech. You take it, and for which you should take the speech off your head. You need to live your speech. Put your speech in your heart and connect it with the audience members. Nobody knows the missing words of speech. Okay. Even if you're going to memorize your speech, internalize your speech. Start thinking. Okay, you prepare your international speech. You're driving to work, or you're having some free time. Even when you're moving around in your home, think about your speech. Think about the various moments of your speech, various characters of your speech. How you're going to, can you do something else? Or do something else, so that you remember your speech as sections, not memorizing and reciting. So that life will make your speech connect with the audience members. Again, in Mike Carr's speech, how much of connection? His connection was amazing. When he transformed himself into a child, then into a mature presenter. When he talked about the teacher, he was the teacher, the bad teacher. The teacher who was not very positive, the teacher who was positive. So much of transformation, so much of facial expression, which transported his speech so well. Connection continued. I think we talked about the facial expression, the friendliness, the right emotions. The most intricate part, it makes a lot of difference, especially at that level, at the district level. We should not think our speech, we should live our speech. We talked about. And I'm going to give you some valuable tips to improve your connection. Because as public speaker, I mean, to improve a connection, it requires practice. Practice. You can write a speech. You can write the world's best speech. But to deliver a speech, it requires a lot of practice. And practice in front of so many people who can help you. Some of them are mentors, some of them people at home. You need to record and review your speech. You see your speech for yourself, how you look. I mean, is there life in it, or don't be biased to you. Be unemotionally look at your speech. Look at it again and again. Work on those parts where you may not be really good. I am sure my car worked like mad on this speech. I mean, every moment he brings the right expressions. We will talk about certain things very nice. Connection, it should be connection, it should focus on the connection. Think about the audience, not the content of your speech. Conversational and storytelling. These are two aspects in any speech. When, for example, my car was talking about what happened to him in library, he was giving you a nice story. He was explaining those characters. He was behaving like those characters. He was having an interaction with those characters. This is the storytelling part. But when he wants to come and appeal to the audience members about victory should not be looked at as a result, but it's probably a step. It's probably the try for a future action. That time he was conversing with you. He was coming closer to the camera or the edge of the stage. So you have to balance. Typically, about 70-75% can be storytelling. That should be a 20, especially in the concluding part, there has to be conversation. Mix it up. Facial expression, we talked about intonation and inflection. I will not go into these details, but very quickly let me tell you, again, we are dealing with multinational audience members. We don't know how we sound to some of the other nationalities or people from different cultural background, different school background. We have a way to intonate and inflect. What is intonation? In a sentence, I know there are a lot of teachers here. There are rising intonations, falling intonations, and a flat sentence. Okay? I normally use one sentence which is very clear to demonstrate this. She got an increment. She got an increment. She got an increment. It's relatively flat. She got an increment. It's a rising intonation. She got an increment. All these three sound and mean differently for different audience members. We need to be very mindful about that. And so that it fits the context of his speech. If he connects, we have our own nativities, we have our own roots. But in an international speech, we are talking to international audience members. Let me quickly, as Indians, I'm an Indian. As Indians, we have, when sometimes our question sounds like an answer. Okay? This even the way I say, okay. You got it, huh? You got it? I mean, this is not appropriate in an international. Did you get it? Okay, this is international. I mean, in terms of intonation and inflection, which word you inflect? Let's look at the same sentence again. She got an increment. When you inflect it under she got an increment. If I put it under increment, she got an increment. It all has different meanings. So make it appropriate to the audience. Okay, that's very important. Otherwise, the message that you're trying to convey may not convey. Diction and characteristic. Diction is pronunciation. We all know that. I think we are all non-native English speakers. We are not native English speakers. We don't have to sound like a native English speaker, but we need to be comprehensible for the audience. What we speak needs to connect. It is like, I have used this example before, Jackie Chan acting in Hollywood movies, but he's a big success. we are able to understand what he speaks. That's enough. He speaks like a Hong Kongish or a Chinese personality, but it's fine. And cadence, there is a natural music in our voice, depending on which background we come from. It is okay to have the music as long as it is understandable. We don't have to sound artificial. Focus on the message, core message. They are not you. This is if you go back to Mike Carr's speech, I think 3 or 4 places he uses the victory is all about trying, and it is not a result. It's not about the result. Victory is not. He repeats it 4 or 5 times so that the audience members register it again and again. And he does it so nicely, so naturally, it doesn't look artificial. And trust yourself. Trust your speech. You are the master of your speech. Don't go there shaking, thinking about your speech, and try to recollect. If you slip a word, go and try to pull back the word. Don't do all those things. Don't say sorry on the stage. Coaching. I mean, definitely coaching is necessary. I mean, even the professional players, the professional artists of the world have coaches. So are we. If you have to be an effective public speaker, we need to take a lot of coaching. Go to your mentors and live your speech. I will quickly run through this. How we lose our audience members. Sometimes we are so strongly thinking about the content and we forget about the audience members. We disconnect. We try to dominate. We try to shout and convey our message too strongly. Again, it has to be very pleasant. It should be a very pleasant, pleasing, graceful, enjoyable experience for the audience. That's very important. And bringing in obscure statistics. You start sharing so many statistics, this day, that calendar, this. No, we don't have time. Don't let the audience members think, feel. Quantification. Sometimes some speakers come and speak about something bad that is happening in the world, and they start looking at the audience members, and they look at them as if they are the people who are responsible for all the bad things happening in the world, because they get so carried away with this speech. Don't do that. You have to get them close to your heart. Too serious? No, do not connect. You should have the right body language. The body language of Mike Carr was wonderful, wonderful. When he said, when he was finally conveying that victory is not in the result. Victory. Sometimes we need to fail. He did this little bit. He was trying to be so humble. He was not trying to make the audience members feel that he's giving them a lecture or advice. He was just appealing. I think that's important. Right body language. And don't be abstract. When abstract is being vague, not being very specific. If you have any question, we can talk about that. And finally, the originality. The originality of it's a judging element. The originality of your speech, the way you deliver your speech, it's going to be so very important, because every one of us is unique. We need to bring out what we possibly can bring out better than anybody else can do it, like us. We should not copy. I am very sure there will be a lot of versions of Mike Carr's speech very soon. Not here, I don't, but we need to maintain our originality. That is very important. People are going to look for that. Bring out the you. So I'm just once again refreshing the 3 C's of a great speech: content, which is the storyline, central message, speech craft, and the main characters of your speech, the character portrayal of your speech, context, the setting, environment, places, and behaviors. Connection is all about how you connect your speech. Okay? Your body language, your facial expression, everything forms part of your connection. How you do it. Now, I want to quickly ask your views before we handle the Q&A. I'm going to ask your views. I'm going to ask you rank Mike Carr's speech in terms of as a 3C analysis. He had a beautiful content and a nice context design, and this connection was amazing. How much would you give for those three C's. And on a scale of 100, let me make it clear. For every C, on a scale of 100, what would be your score? Let's start with content. The floor is open. After this, we have Q&A.
95, sir.
Okay.
95, sir. 95 for content.
95 for the content.
Yes, sir. 95 for the content, sir.
Any more?
Yeah, I am on the same page as Toastmaster Arvind.
Can you justify why would you give him such a high score? 95.
Yes, sir.
Anyone else wants to give a different score?
90, sir.
90. This is Mohan.
Yes.
Please score from Empower.
I feel 90 is too low, sir.
Too
That's
low.
definitely 95 plus.
Okay, 90.
An A plus.
Any quick views as to why you want to give him 90 plus or 95?
Because the content was simple and he kept it all interesting, and he didn't lose the connection with the audience at any point of time. And he crafted the speech so well in a way that there at certain moments there were happiness, and when he was sad, I was able to feel sad. When he was petrified, I was petrified too. So he took me through the entire speech in a way that I could never get out of it. So I think it's 95 plus.
Dr. George, any views?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with him. And he kept it very simple, very interesting. And the storyline was also not at all complicated, very easy to follow. And the story was also pretty relatable. And, to be straightforward, I was reminded of an incident that happened way back in my primary school days when I happened to break one of the chairs.
Okay.
I meant for the head teacher. And, I was punished. I was asked to kneel down outside the classroom for 2 days straight.
Okay.
So the moment he broke the projector, I could easily relate to him.
You're able to connect it back to you.
Exactly, connected back.
Anyone wants to give a different score? I think all three of them are colliding on the same number. Something very different from this, or no? Don't have to disagree for the sake of disagreeing, but quick view. So that, this is just, I want to make sure that we understand this concept. Just did you make it?
I think it was an excellent content design.
Did you make it?
Actually, sir, I would suggest that it was 85%.
Here you have
Because in terms of originality or the idea, it's not a new idea. We talk about failures as such. The story or the happening what he depicted, it's not a new idea or a fresh idea.
Okay.
But the presentation was different, but the idea was an used idea.
Good. I think maybe we will, unless someone wants to say something, I'm trying to summarize the discussions here. For the content.
Sir, DTM Peri, sir.
Go ahead, champion.
Yes, I would have to agree I would have to agree with the DTM Venkat, sir. Content-wise, yes, content-wise, I would have to say 85 because it wasn't so the idea that he presented is nothing unusual, but the way that he presented it, okay, it was great, it was excellent. But content-wise, if we're going to look at it in the content-wise, the content that he offered to the audience is something very simple. It's very easy to comprehend, but it's nothing new. That's why I would have to give it 85. Thank you, sir.
Very interesting, very interesting. Any more? One final view? For the sake of time, one final view? Or no one has it? Looks like no more. Okay. I think, let me click this button. This is, I think definitely it is 90 plus. And I would definitely, this is my, I think I'm not the ultimate person. I think some of you are even better than me. I think definitely it is 90 plus. It is 90 plus, And I would say it is even closer to 95. Why I'm saying it is closer to 95? I think some of you were there in the previous analysis we did about Jim Key before. In Jim Key's speech, we all agreed on 90 plus. But I think my card's speech is slightly a few shades better. Why I'm saying this better? Again, for you to understand the content. Content is not only the speech craft or the idea. Yes, idea. See, idea. Yes, I think many people, if you talk about failures, many have talked about failures. Motivation, uplifting, encouragement, many people have talked. But I think, okay, I'm not talking about connection or delivery, but how the speech craft is, how the content is designed. Content is not only the speech craft, content is also about the characterization. The characterization and the story. Okay. I think he, in my opinion, within the structure of the virtual platform, I think he spent a lot of time designing those characters. He said this and this. Do you remember this and this? Do you remember this? What he, those must have not, between Mark Melbourne, you've all been at this thing. You remember what he was trying to say by this and this? This is Miss Montgomery sitting here. And this is Linda, or Landon, Miss Landon. Okay, and he's characterizing, he's using those two characters, but he's using human behaviors as two characters. There is always a Montgomery here and a Landon here. Even when he was talking about Toastmasters, he's talking about it. He used those characterization techniques to powerfully convey his story and convey the speech well. This is also part of the content design. Definitely, and the way, I think there was a humble spinning all around. Even when he was talking about, if you remember, when he's at the connection part, when he's saying, he's again bringing, like what I said before, when he's bringing back what Miss Montgomery said, what is that Miss Montgomery said? What was that Miss Montgomery said? He could have simply said, as Miss Montgomery said. That is more oppressive, more commanding, more pushy. He deliberately designed it to invite audience members' participation. So content is definitely 90 plus up to 95. Context. Very quickly, how much would you want to be? This is just to check your relatability of this concept.
95.
95, sir.
Three more numbers.
I would like to give an A.
95, yes, sir.
I think this is all. This is. I would. It is definitely 90 plus. It was simple, easy to understand, connect, and he kept it in the school, library, home. School, library, home. Little bit he talked about Toastmasters. Okay, and in fact, I would give content more weightage than the context. So that is why I'm giving it as 90 plus. Connection.
95 plus, sir.
Absolutely outstanding, in my humble opinion.
Some of you are speaking, but it's muted.
I agree.
Certainly 95 plus.
95 plus, yes.
Especially on a virtual platform.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's an O. Outstanding.
This is one, as I have shared in the past, this is one universal factor. Most of the world champions, naturally, they all.
Peri, can you get a little closer? You are not audible enough.
Okay. Am I audible now?
Yeah.
I said, I think for most of the world champions, when you do a 3-3 analysis, the connection is the most dominating factor. Okay, that is them. That is what they bring themselves into the speech. That is totally their originality. And because the content can be designed, context can be designed, but the person who conveys and wins is the speaker. And normally connections, and here connection was wonderful, strong, amazing. Some of the great things that I liked about the speech, he brought this characters, Montgomery and Landon. Montgomery as a humble, encouraging, self-confidence boosting factor, and Landon as someone whose internal. Landon is nothing but our own internal fears. We all have fear of failure. We are always concerned about the result. That is Landon, and his own personal conflict. He himself, anxious, thinking, wonderful. And as I told you, someone said the cup with the dragon, wonderful design. Even the tilt of his head, when he comes to the camera, tilting the head. When he's scared, he's tilting his head more. And when he's nicely speaking with confidence, he's very pleasantly, I think. Miss Montgomery, every time he's using very nice. Landon, that grimace on his face. Even the way he placed all the good things, the stage he used, all the good things, whenever he had to say, he was using this side of the stage or somewhere here. On all the bad things, all the feared part is on this side of the stage. Very, very professionally done. Obviously, anyone going to that level has to be done. I think we are nearly done. That's all I had to deliver to you. We talked about 3 C's. We talked about the design elements, what it takes to do the international speech, why we call it an international speech as an international speech. Keep the audience in mind. Do it for the audience. The challenges of the 450 seconds.